eliminate those stalls, which would create the need for a parking variance. Essentially, we're exchanging one minor variance for a variance which we feel is probably a little bit more major. Item number 4, variance would not cause an adverse effect on the environment. The parking setbacks are existing. They're not creating any adverse impact. They have not for the 20 or so years that they've existed in such a location, and we don't anticipate them to do so in the future. And the 5th consideration is the difficulty was not created by the applicant or former owner. The existing parking setbacks, as I mentioned previously, are required to be maintained to provide an adequate number of parking stalls. Based on the history that we've seen in the records of site plans, these stalls have existed in their current location for at least since my client has owned this property, which is about 25 years. So we don't believe that was created, certainly not by this applicant, but perhaps by a prior owner. Moving to the 5 points for the outdoor dining. The variance would not produce an impact on adjacent properties or the neighborhood because. So again, just to reiterate, we are proposing a setback of 79 feet from the proposed outdoor deck to the rear lot line where 150 feet is required. So while that variance seems somewhat significant, the real key point here is that as the crow flies from that specific outdoor deck, the nearest residential home structure is over 200 feet away, well beyond the 150 feet that's required by the code. The request is not substantial, again, because the actual setback from that particular facet of this application, which is the outdoor deck, is over 200 feet from the nearest residential home. And an important point to note on the site plan is that the setback of the existing building to that same rear property line or the easterly property line, the existing building wall at its closest point is 66.7 feet away. The proposed deck, which is located out the south side of the building, is actually 79 feet. So the existing building is still closer than the outdoor dining. The benefit cannot be achieved by an alternative simply because the overall average depth of this property is about 150 feet. The code requires 150 feet setback to the outdoor dining, but I would submit that there's no part of this restaurant or even any building could be built to comply with that 150-foot setback. This is a lot like a lot of older parcels in the town where the lot area does not achieve the goals of the current zoning. The variance would not cause an adverse effect on the environment. Response to that is that the outdoor dining is merely a continuation of the ongoing and continued legal use of this sit-down full-service restaurant. It will have no adverse environmental impacts whatsoever. The difficulty was not created by the applicant or former owner because it's clear, and as was indicated in the planning memo, that the creation and the proposal for the outdoor dining is indeed a self-created situation. The owner is electing to install, to build this exterior dining deck. However, as I indicated, in terms of being able to locate that use, as I indicated in the prior point, at a code-conforming 150-foot setback, there is no physical means of doing that on a 150-foot deep lot. Just the last part of my presentation is just to review the special, the standards for special exception uses as they specifically relate to outdoor dining. For the record, that's Chapter 322-82-C in the town code. That states the following regulations shall be met. Item A, outdoor dining shall not be located within 150 foot of any residence district. And they add a very important caveat in this part of the code. Unless the principal building is situated between the proposed use and the residence district. The point that I made previously, whereby the existing building is set back, the existing corner of the building is set back 66.7 feet from the rear property line, and the deck is proposed at 79 feet from that property line. And it's proposed out the side of the building that faces the business zone property, not the residentially zoned property. I believe this standard is met in that the building is closer to the residential property line than the proposed outdoor dining. Item B, the outdoor dining area shall be set back from the curb line at least 10 feet. in the CB district and 40 feet in other districts. We're in an NB district, and we comply with this. Item C, if the outdoor dining exceeds 1,000 square feet, parking shall be provided at the same rate as the principal use. We're only proposing 330 square feet. Nonetheless, as I indicated at the outset of my presentation, we comply fully with the required parking. Item D, the outdoor dining area may be covered. No fences or walls higher than 4 feet shall be permitted. As indicated previously, there will be a full roof that's tied into the building as part of this outdoor deck. And we will have a 3-foot high code compliant railing around the entire portion of that deck for safety. Item E, from October 31st to April 1st, all furniture shall be stored indoors. The applicant will certainly agree that from Halloween to April 1st, that he will have no outdoor dining and the furniture will be located indoors. Item F, the outdoor dining area shall not be used between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. In speaking with Mr. Marsilio, his late nights are typically Friday and Saturday nights. The kitchen is closed at 10:30. The last meal is served by then, and the place is generally dark by 11 or 11:15, but nonetheless, the outdoor dining will cease unequivocally before 11 p.m. Item G, outdoor entertainment or loudspeakers shall not be permitted. We agree. Outdoor entertainment and loudspeakers will not be utilized. There is, on occasion, they do have live music in this facility, but none of that will ever take place out on the outdoor dining area. The outdoor dining area is for seats and for enjoying a warm evening with dining, and that's what it'll be used for. There are general special exception standards which are more generalized. I can certainly run through them. The hour is late. I would offer to do it if the board wanted, but I feel that we've made our presentation, and I'm certainly here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions on the application?
No question.
Planning?
Mr. Chairman, Planning prepared a planning advisory report after reviewing the application and recommends approval.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard in the application? Okay, come on up, one at a time. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is John Carro, C-A-R-R-O. I live at 3 Dogwood Drive in Village of the Branch. I'm here representing the Village of the Branch. I'm a trustee of the village, and we were notified because it's in 200 feet of the village property residence. First question I have is how many tables will be on the upstairs dining, the deck dining? I assume it's going to be more than 4 or 5. What happens is we have a quality of life issue here. People who live on Judges Lane are caught between the brush barn, which is having something every Friday and Saturday nights and Sundays, and then we're going to have outside dining right on the other side of them. So we feel we don't have a problem with the extension of the building. We have a problem with the upstairs dining, the outside dining, or the deck dining. That's our first problem with this property. The second is that the parking. I know they say they have the right amount of parking, yet I live in that area, obviously, and there seem to be people parking on 25A on Saturday nights and Sundays, Fridays, especially holidays, and parking in other people's property. I think there are other people here tonight who will talk about that. But as for the village, because it's within 200 feet of a village land, the outdoor dining is something we'd rather not see. That's it. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Next. Good evening.
Good evening. Lorraine Barbone, B-A-R-B-O-N-E, 5 Judges Lane, Smithtown. First problem is parking. Parking has always been a problem. I have been in that house for 22 years. We have made several complaints. We were told to go to the town. I have gone to the town. You cannot even pull out of there. They don't even have room for parking right now with the occupancy that they have. They will not have room for any more. They park all down North Country Road. You go to pull out, you cannot even make a left-hand turn. I have gone to them personally. I have asked them to have their customers move their cars. I think the town put a sign there, they still park there. So if nobody believes, come down Judges Lane, with your family in the car and your children and try to make a left-hand turn on a Friday and Saturday night. My children are not allowed to make a left-hand turn. That's number one. Number two is, in the future, if Garden Grill decides to sell their business, now there's a variance and grandfathered in for outdoor sports bar, outdoor. I live there. I have put all my money into my home, and the last thing I want is to lose the value of my home from something like that. And the third thing is the noise. You can hear them just on their porch. They have like a little balcony that people can go outside and smoke, I guess, from the restaurant, and I can sit outside and I hear it. My kids' window's there, my window's there. The noise will be a problem, even though it's on the other side. I hear it just when they're outside now. So I am 100% opposed to it, so I'm just telling you what I feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
You can pull that down.
Like that.
There you go.
My name is Lucia Spar. It's Lucia, S as in Sam, P as in Peter, AHR. I live at 4 Judges Lane. I actually have the same concerns as Lorraine does, but I'm also I think I'm the buffer that they're talking about. And the buffer that they're talking about used to be lots of trees, but because of all the storms we've been having, a lot of them are down. So you can now see from Judges Lane, you can see all the bright lights shining from the Garden Grill. And it shines pretty brightly, and there is noise on the, especially during the summer and the spring, during the day. And we do also are contending with noise from the Historical Society too. And in terms of the traffic on North Country Road, I can't turn left anyway, but if there's cars parked up to the entrance, it makes it difficult to make a left turn, almost impossible, and even making a right turn is difficult. And people coming in and out of Garden Grill, very often, we haven't, it actually has been better for a while, but we used to have a lot of accidents, usually about once a week, and that's always a dangerous spot. So those are my issues.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Chris Marvin, Marvin at 3 Judges Lane. So I'm basically kitty corner to the property there. And I mean, while it's nice having a nice restaurant, we could walk through our back gate and go enjoy. I'm just thinking it's a quality of life issue, having a lot of noise coming from the dining on the back porch. I got young kids; they go to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock. So that's my main concern.
All right, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Libby Smith, S-M-I-T-H. I live at 2 Judges Lane in Smithtown. As my actual neighbors, my people before me spoke, it's a real quality of life issue for us on Judges Lane. I know the applicant said that they were moving it to the southeast, the outdoor. Well, in fact, yes, from the houses that you can see, you're taking it away, but you're directly heading it towards me. And all that the buffer is that we have an exact, I'm right behind the Caleb Smith house.
Excuse me, can you just address the
sorry.
board, please? Thank you.
And the noise, you can hear it now in the summer and the spring when our windows are open. It's a real quality of life. As far as the parking issue has been a problem right along. We were here, must be maybe 9 years ago, with them asking for a variance for the same things, parking and because they wanted to do an expansion as well as outdoor dining. It is an issue when you live nestled in a residential area. And there is no way that there is any buffer. The buffer is incurred by us so that we really cannot be outside in our backyards and enjoying outdoor dining in our own private homes if that's going to be the case. Parking has been a huge issue as well. We have not sometimes been able to get out of Judge's Lane because the cars have actually parked so close to the road that we've actually had to call the police and ask them, or else gone through the Historical Society in order to get out. It's a real safety hazard, and so those have been my concerns, and I just can't imagine someplace, and especially if they sell, what it's going to be in the future. Thank you for hearing
Thank
me.
you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name's Lynn Barnhart again, Barnhardt. I own the business next door, State Farm Insurance. I also just purchased the building next to State Farm, so I got two notices at 52 North Country Road. The one that is the Smithtown lumber company that we found out. I'm here, I appreciate a vibrant business next to my business. So I'm not complaining about that, but there's been some approvals along the way that have gotten approved that I actually have a copy of something that they applied for, and the business was able to extend and not do what was applied for. And he does have a CO for it, and I'm not sure how. It has kind of encroached in on my business. We're now on top of one another. I'm not sure where the snow's going to go. The dumpster now is all the way to the parking lot where leaves and stuff get messed up. They're talking about putting a buffer, but it literally, my building is there. There's a new paver driveway that comes through right past my building. If we start putting buffers there, it literally will be a buffer of trees, my bush, and my windows. And I guess where the proposed parking is going to be right up against my parking lot, and my cars are parked right up against the parking lot. So it's just going to be this jammed packed area that I'm concerned because I've been a good neighbor and I haven't said anything. And I've had problems too with my parking lot. My parking lot is pretty filled on Saturdays and Sundays. And I insure over 3,000 households in the town of Smithtown. And I've been one of these people that my clients visit this establishment. My staff does, I do, I am not opposed to it. I'm actually very uncomfortable being here. But my clients will tell me on a weekday, oh, I parked in your parking lot, I hope you didn't mind. So I feel like the onus is being put on me as a business owner to post signs and say towed at, my expense or at your expense. And I start to look like this terrible neighbor. It's been suggested that I put up fencing or a gate. Well, who's got to do that every night in the pouring rain in the winter? Am I going to have to get out of my car on 25A? That's very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. And try to shut a gate, or if I'm away, am I going to make my staff members do that? He has tried to comply and have his workers not park there, but they do. And I will not tell you the stories that I've had to endure for 25 years dealing with young kids that, don't listen to their owners and their bosses, but they don't. They are trying desperately to get them to park over in the 52 North Country Road parking lot, which is also adjoined with the town municipal parking lot. That parking lot's getting very damaged also because of the wear and tear, and I don't see anyone fixing that up. But the problem is now I've purchased that building, and now I am finally getting permits. I have the permits to get, and I have possible tenant. The tenant's going to be paying, and now their parking lot's going to have people parking in it. So I just see the problem getting bigger. And I have to just, I have to take up, because I know holidays are tough, but there's holidays that we come back to my business at lunchtime and I have to go next door to say, hey, we got to get the cars out of my parking lot. We can't even get in my own business. They comply with that. I'm not saying that, but it is, at nighttime I have to go. So it's just, I'm trying to not be concerned, but I am. And there is a problem. The parking's a problem. And again, I know at holidays, if you look at the curve in that road, I had an employee, their daughter wasn't allowed to make a left-hand turn out of my business working for me. She didn't need to be going right, but you cannot see. Even if the cars aren't parked there, you can't see. So it is pretty dangerous, and again, I already have big issues with my parking lot being full.
Right.
So.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Would you like to come back?
I'd like to thank everyone who showed up tonight to voice their concerns. Some of it not surprising, understandably. And, I've been working with Mr. Marsilio for probably about 10 years now. And, what we do have here is a very invested property owner and business owner who has basically focused all his energies and finances on this family business and has made it the success that it is. A few just general statements that I would make. For sure, Mr. Marsilio is celebrating his 25th year this year in the business, but I believe this has been a restaurant for somewhere over 45 years. With that, I'm fairly certain that the Judges Lane subdivision was created after this restaurant was created. And what I mean by that is,
Please, please.
right, but what I see is that landowners who moved in after this restaurant was in place. And just getting to some of the questions. So Mr. Carroll from the Village of the Branch asked how many tables. In the 40-foot long area, we're planning on 6 tables with 4 seats each, so 24 total seats are probably planned outside. That's roughly the way it lays out. With regard to parking, it sounds like parking on North Country is a big concern to Judges Lane. I live in Smithtown. I live a mile and a half from here. I have seen on Friday and Saturday nights, clearly in the nighttime hours, this place does do a good business. Parking is not illegal on North Country Road. It's permitted. So while we do provide the code-compliant number of stalls, we've contacted the state, and there are no parking restrictions. If the neighbors are concerned about that, certainly they could make a petition to the DOT, and they would probably gladly install no parking signs. But right now, it's a legal use. With that, a couple of other things that some people were adding. And what I want to reiterate is we're adding 10 more delineated parking stalls with this application. We're adding to the size of the building, but we're not adding any seats. So what that means is there's not an expectation that we're drawing more people to this property. They're just going to be more comfortable while they're inside. Health department limitations on the number of seats are the health department limitations. We can't exceed that, and we're at the maximum now. With regard to the noise and the young children, I have young kids too. When they were younger, they went to bed at 7:30. Unfortunately, now they're teenagers, and I can't stay up nearly as late as they do. Again, what I can say is it's been a commercially owned business as a restaurant for at least as many years as that gentleman's been in his house and his children have been alive, and it's not changing anytime soon. So it's a locational situation where it's a commercial property that abuts residential property, commonplace all over Smithtown. With regard to Mrs. Barnhart, my client did have the opportunity to sit with Mrs. Barnhart today to try to understand her concerns because she did reach out to the planning department to speak about certain issues. And she mentioned a lot of different things. I mean, couple of things I just want to highlight is indeed there is a certificate of occupancy for all the improvements in place at this premises, period. There's nothing illegal, there's nothing done inappropriately or improperly. So there is a C of O, and the building department has sought to issue that. There's no issues there. With regard to the parking location, she's claiming, I know she has a business that's more or less 9 to 5, daytime type business. that there are people parking in her lot. It sounds like employees, which I don't know why that would be the case during the day. There's ample parking on the lot, and their lunch crowd is not a busy crowd. So there's more parking available on that site during the day when her business is operational than there is at night when her business is closed. That said, I agree with her. People shouldn't be parking on her property. Some of the things that Mr. Marsilio discussed with her today is installation of a gate or a barrier. What I would propose, just as a common sense barrier, if it's agreeable to both parties, and it's certainly agreeable to Mr. Marsilio, is I don't think anybody would park in her lot if they had to walk out to North Country Road and come back. So we'd be more than willing to put up a very decorative picket-type residential-style fence that's in keeping with the character of this restaurant and her building as well, which is also lovely, along the property line. That would, I think, eliminate any ability or any desire for anybody to want to park on her lot and cut over to the restaurant. We would offer that if the board wanted it, if Mrs. Barnhart wanted it, we'd absolutely put it in. We would do it at 4 feet, which is permitted by right. We would not need a variance for that if we put it right on the lot line. And certainly, as part of the planning advisory memo, there were requests for additional buffering, green space, evergreens. Mr. Marsilio is 110% interested in hearing whatever can be done to soften the use and to meet the requirements. He's a long-term neighbor and is going to continue to be one, and wants to do so in harmony with the community. I think I've answered all of the highlight questions, the ones that were non-repeat. If I haven't, I'm here to answer them.
Are there lights in the parking lot?
They're on the building, I believe.
There's also lights on the rear property line that are headed in the direction of the building and away from neighbors.
Okay.
They're the proper.
Everything should be
light-
pointed down and shielded.
They're shielded lights, exactly.
All right.
They're in two locations. There's two on one side of the property, towards the south side, towards the north side, rear of the property, there's one. There are some building lights that are facing very low and down, and I'm sure from a distance you can see that there's light there, just like I can see some light from the neighbors' houses, but nothing from them is glaring in my eyes, and I'm very certain that nothing is glaring in their eyes from the garden.
All right.
Just one thing I would add, Fred, when do those lights turn off at night?
They turn off at like an hour after closing, an hour and a half after closing.
So on busy nights, on Friday and Saturday nights, they will be closed by midnight?
Midnight to 1 in the morning.
Okay.
And if that were directed to be adjusted, I am perfectly willing to do what is necessary to adjust the situation, because none of any of what people are bringing up here, talking about parking, talking about this and that, has been brought to my attention. So anything that gets brought to my attention, I do try to handle in the best way I can. I've been a Smithtown resident since '73, and I love this town. I do have a lot of respect for my clientele, as all Smithtown-based clientele, which I have a tremendous respect for. Further than that, I'm willing to do what's ever needed to accommodate the situation here.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. All right. Samosa? Yeah, I think, isn't that them? And then there's another. right, please?
All set?
Yeah.
Okay. So we did that one, okay.
Spinoza.
I don't think so. The next case on the agenda is case number 18109, Walter Sornoza, 38 Bayberry Drive, St. James. The location of the property, the east side of Bayberry Drive, 199 feet north of Clover Lane. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard from 40 feet to 33 feet for an existing patio, increase the maximum paving in the rear yard from 25% to 45%, which is existing, increase the maximum paving in the side yard from 25% to 70%, which is existing, and reduce the distance of the rear lot line from 1 foot to 0 for existing paving.
Spinoza, anyone here? No?
Close it.
Mr. Chairman, I recommended, I think, at the last scheduled hearing where there was no show, that the
There was
board
the
had the
final.
prerogative to move to deny without prejudice. That option is still available to you.
We'll do that when
Okay.
we go over. All right.
No adjournment.
Case 18109.
Claude, you need a motion to close the,
Huh?
close the hearing. on,
Yeah, somebody will know.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, can I have a motion to close the application?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor? Aye.
Let's see, we have to do next one. There we go. Okay. The next case on the agenda, case number 18253, Bernard Winkowski, 3 Glenmere Court, Comac. The location of the property, the south side of Glenmere Court, 116 feet east of Glenmere Lane. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard from 40 feet to 35 feet for a proposed 118 square foot front portico. Yes. Increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the front yard from 25% to 30%, which is existing. Increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the rear yard from 25% to 41%, which is existing.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Bernard Winkowski, Winkowski, 3 Glenmere Court, Comac, New York. Applying for a variance as you just approved, and I'd just like to, been renovating my house, and I'd like to put a new portico on the front of my house. The old one is rotten, leaking, and all twisted up. Time for a new one.
The paved surface that you're increasing, is that asphalt or concrete, or is it?
Paver stones,
Paver stones.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone on the board have any questions on the application?
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second. Moving second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you. And that concludes our hearing for tonight.